The recent Luminary Wardens event was overall pretty entertaining. We finally got to see the event officially start, Luca's performance as an off-world contender, and even learn a bit about Belobog and the Luofu's connected past. What really caught my eye though was one of the special event fights, specifically the one related to Samatha, the monk from the Claret Wheel Temple. The story told the tale of individuals who are trying to move away from their supposed or expected nature. While the story was generally interesting, it got me thinking. In Star Rail's universe, there are many groups that adhere themselves to factions, aeons, or paths, and in doing so, sort of earmark themselves into specific roles. The Borisins are always seen as barbaric savages, the Anti-Matter Legion are always destroyers, and those that follow Nihility are expected to always succumb to despair. But what if someone, like Samatha, wanted to move away from the roles the universe expects of them? Would they be able to do it? I think that on an individual level, it's certainly possible, but I don't think the powers that be would allow everyone to change their fate so easily. In fact, I have reason to believe that the universe is designed in such a way that each aeon and path have long determined the fates of each individual, and to break away from these would only incur their wrath. Jingliu might have actually gotten it right when she claimed that the aeons are just playing chess with the lives of mortals. But why do I think this is the case? That's what we'll be discussing in this video. Before we do though, if you want to see more Honkai Star Rail content, do consider subscribing to the channel. Obviously, given the nature of this topic, there will be some spoilers from the 2.5 story as well as the event. Though personally, I don't think it's too big of a spoiler reveal, but fair warning either way. Now, this idea or theory is not substantiated in any way, and really just amounts to it being one of my brain farts, so just keep an open mind and don't take it too seriously. As I've mentioned, in this video, I'm going to put forward the idea that a grand conspiracy exists. One that claims that the aeons are part of a system that perpetuates suffering, and this is accomplished through fates and destinies. What I'm claiming is that fate has shackled each individual to a role, and even if they try to leave this role, fate, the aeons, and even the past itself would prevent them from doing so. Basically, the mortal life in Star Rail only amounts to suffering and is ultimately pointless. But that's a pretty bold claim to make, so let's look at the clues one by one. Let's start off by talking about Samatha's story. As you know, the Xianzhou Alliance, particularly the Foxians, really dislike the Borisins, and who can blame them? As far as the Foxians are concerned, these space wolves are savages, having enslaved the Foxian race due to some misplaced sense of superiority and are functionally beyond redemption. They are barbaric, oppressive, and on top of that, they follow the abundance. From the 2.5 story, we get a deeper understanding of the Borisins, with strength indeed being a key and important value within their society, but also honor and pride. Samatha's story, however, poses an interesting question. What happens when a Borisin rejects their supposed nature? In her story arc, she and several members of their group all reject the ingrained nature of the Borisin and instead choose to live a life of a pacifist. Her journey to the Xianzhou Luofu and choosing to compete in the war dance was all to raise awareness for the many other civilians in the Claret Wheel Temple who choose to live this way, much of them being previous followers of the Abundance. During her journey, she also meets an Intellitron, who is a leftover remnant of the First Mechanical Empire who adheres to the anti-organic equation. Much like Samatha, this robot, who now goes by Sugata, was also following their expected programming, one that had them despise and wish for the eradication of organics. By the end of their journey though, both these individuals showed that they could fight against their supposed nature, though it came at a steep price, with Samatha's leader and companion dying and Sugata having to sacrifice itself. This is what got me thinking about this very topic. Despite their earnest efforts to change who they are told to be, a majority of the party that set off on this quest ended up dead. Sure, they've somewhat accomplished their goal, but what about the many others who attempt this and likely fail, like the Borisin who wanted to be a merchant and was ostracized by her own people? There's also plenty of examples of individuals who tried to break fate only to end up facing the harsh reality, one good example being Fu Xuan. It seems that those who try to reject their predetermined fate end up suffering greatly, almost as if the universe itself is punishing them. But that's nonsense, right? The universe isn't a sentient thing, why would it care? This then reminded me of Jingliu's little speech at the end of her companion quest. See, while most of the Shenzhou Alliance is looking to rid themselves of the Plague Author, Jingliu wants to get rid of all the aeons. She mentions that the aeons are not benevolent and view mortals as nothing more than pieces to be moved and manipulated as part of their entertainment. Everything tied to the universe and fate is nothing more than an elaborate chess game. However, while it's easy to blame the aeons as the main big bad here, and even understandable given Jingliu only has a narrow view of how the universe actually works, we have to remember that most of the aeons are bound by the Primal Mobile. To claim that they planned all of this is a bit of a stretch given they act the way they do, not because they want to, but because it's in their nature. Nanook destroys because it's tied to the path of destruction, not because they gain some sick satisfaction from killing entire planets. Despite this, Jingliu might be half right, in that the way the universe works does seem like it's designed to be a depressing meat grinder, churning the souls of mortals. If you look at all the aeons collectively and consider them as part of a bigger system, you can kind of group them into specific functions. It seems to me that the whole aeon and path system are designed to funnel mortals through a very specific experience within the universe, one that gives them hope only to then crush it later. If we look at it in this way, the aeons can be generally grouped into three main categories: aeons that cause chaos, aeons that give false hope, and finally, aeons that represent a meaningless end. Voracity, propagation, and elation are examples of aeons that clearly cause untold chaos. They bring death and destruction wherever they go, creating fear and dread, while at the same time pushing mortals to find some way of surviving. Then you have the aeons who give false hope, like Lan, Yaosha, qlipoth, and yes, even Akavili. As chaos spreads through the universe, these aeons provide an escape or hope that you may survive. You hear the swarm approaching your system? Well, qlipoth will build a wall to protect you. Is your civilization on the brink of extinction due to having all food routes or supplies disrupted by the swarm? Yaosha will come to save you. Did Yaosha screw up your planet? Well, then Lan will grant you revenge. When viewed in this way, each of them seem to give humanity a sense of false hope, a chance that they might survive in this harsh universe purely due to the benevolence of these aeons, but sadly, it's all meaningless. Because at the end of the day, aeons like IX, Nanook, or Terminus embody the pointlessness of it all. Siding with Lan is an empty promise because at the end of the day, everything ends up being destroyed by Nanook anyways. The Stellaron Hunters have all but confirmed that this will happen, and even if it doesn't, the universe will ultimately return to the void, much like what IX claims. Regardless of the ending, an ending is confirmed given Terminus does exist, the embodiment of finality itself. This is the chess game Jingliu alludes to, and why despite their efforts, Samatha and their group ended up the way that they did. The system that exists within Star Rail is meant to hurt humanity and mortals and assign them roles they might not even be interested in serving. Pull away from it and the universe will correct your course. That's why fate is so difficult to change. Even if you somehow achieve this, there is even an aeon that exists to supposedly counter your efforts, the aeon of equilibrium, Ho'o. I've done a deep dive on Ho'o in another video which I really suggest you check out, but essentially it's all just one big game. The only thing Jingliu might have gotten wrong is she assumes the aeons are in on it, when they could likely be victims of fate much like mortals are. I mean, the aeons did used to be mortals at some point, there's plenty of stories about them ascending, right? Whoever designed this system is likely the main perpetrator, and even the aeons cannot escape from their predefined fates or roles. That said, I am just being unnecessarily pessimistic here. There is still hope that the characters within the story are able to push beyond their fates. Within Samatha's story, for example, we do see some kindness from certain groups such as Yukong or Jingyuan once they hear her full story. The Stellaron Hunters also seem to be actively trying to change the future. And let's not forget the fate-defying trashcan raccoon that is the Trailblazer. This is just a hopeless and grimdark interpretation. A worst-case scenario, if you will, for the Star Rail universe. One where fate is literally a prison that leads you down a meaningless and pointless road. It's not canon or proven, at least not yet, and should not be taken seriously under any circumstance. I just happen to like rather depressing versions of stories, and this is just my personal idea of how twisted the Star Rail universe can be. It might seem like I'm just blaming the aeons here, but as I've mentioned, they might be prisoners just like the rest of us. Is there a higher power that's screwing around with everyone, or is the universe just naturally designed in this way or manifested in this way? Who knows? All I know at this moment is that the system does seem like it's rigged to cause a lot of suffering and pain. From the perspective of an individual like Jingliu, it certainly does seem like the aeons are just as bad, if not directly perpetuating this cycle, but perhaps a bigger story is involved here. Whether this hate canon of mine ends up to be the real deal or not, I don't know, but it's definitely fun to think about, and that's really the purpose of this video. Just another what if scenario. Do you think the aeons are a part of a grand conspiracy and are just toying with mortals, or are they just victims like humanity is, with a bigger villain hiding in the shadows? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you found the video entertaining, do consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and as usual, have a nice day.